There is a moment in the history of every aspiring naval power when it decides that it is ready to be taken seriously. Not in the shallow waters where coastal defense forces operate, not in the confined geography of a contested strait, but in the open ocean where the real calculus of maritime power has always been settled. For China, that moment arrived incrementally. The Liaoning first, a refurbished Soviet hull, more training vessel than combat system. The Shandong next, fully domestically built. And then the Fujian, domestically designed from the keel up, equipped with an electromagnetic aircraft launch system, the same catapult technology used on American supercarriers, displacing approximately 80,000 tons. The Fujian was China's declaration that it intended to compete for maritime supremacy in the Western Pacific on terms that the United States Navy had defined and owned since 1945. That declaration was about to be tested in the place where tests of this kind have always been conducted, the open ocean between two carrier strike groups in the Philippine Sea. It was a Thursday. The time was 8:47 local. The Philippine Sea was running with a long eastern swell, the sky clear, visibility unlimited, the kind of day where the ocean stretches to the horizon in every direction with nothing to interrupt it, where the geometry of naval confrontation is defined entirely by radar ranges and aircraft envelopes, and the mathematical relationships between forces that are too far apart to see each other with the naked eye. A United States Navy carrier strike group built around a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered carrier accompanied by a cruiser and 4 destroyers was operating approximately 290 nautical miles northeast of the Philippine island of Luzon, conducting a scheduled deployment presence operation in international waters. The strike group had been in the Philippine Sea for 11 days. Its presence was logged, its general operating area known to every intelligence service in the region. It was known specifically to the Chinese Navy, and the Chinese Navy had decided to respond. The contacts appeared on the E-2D Hawkeye's radar at 8:31. Before the CIC watch officer had begun his morning brief, and before the captain had arrived from his cabin where he had been reading the overnight intelligence summary. The E-2D, orbiting at 23,000 feet, 120 miles northwest of the carrier, detected the contacts at a range of approximately 310 miles, bearing 320 from the carrier's position. The initial count was 11, a carrier, 2 cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 4 additional vessels, assessed as logistics support ships and a replenishment oiler. The formation was in a standard carrier strike group defensive arrangement. It was moving southeast at 18 knots. On its current course, it would close the American strike group at a combined approach rate that placed the 2 formations within visual range of each other in approximately 4 hours. The E-2D controller's voice was measured and precise. The strike group Eagle. I hold a large surface group bearing 320, range 310, formation count 11, speed 18, classification carrier strike group. In the American Carrier's Combat Information Center, the watch officer absorbed the report and ran the geometry in under 10 seconds. The bearing, the range, the speed, the course, everything pointed to the same conclusion that the E-2D controller had reached. and that every officer who would subsequently look at this picture would reach. The Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy Carrier Strike Group, built around the Fujian, was on an intercept course with the American Strike Group in international waters, in broad daylight, with unlimited visibility and 4 hours of geometry to play with before the situation required anyone to make a decision that could not be walked back. This was unprecedented, not in the historical sense. Great power navies had operated in proximity throughout the Cold War, and the plan had been conducting exercises in the Philippine Sea with increasing frequency for years. But a planned carrier strike group built around the Fujian, China's most capable carrier, moving on an intercept course toward an American Nimitz-class carrier strike group in international waters in the Philippine Sea, was a different category of event. It was the first time that China had deployed its most capable maritime force in a direct, geometrically unambiguous approach toward the United States Navy's most powerful asset class. In the ocean, where American carrier aviation had operated without peer competition since the Second World War. The watch officer reached for his headset. Captain, CIC. Planned Carrier Strike Group, bearing 320, 310 miles. Course southeast at 18 knots. Classification includes what appears to be the Fujian. Request your presence. The captain arrived in the CIC at 8:51, 4 minutes from call to presence. He looked at the E-2D's picture on the tactical display, absorbing the 11 contact icons, their formation geometry, their course, their speed. He looked at the range. He looked at the timeline. He looked at the classification data that the E-2D had refined during the 4 minutes he had been walking to the CIC. Fujian, her emission profile, the specific radar frequencies of her Type 346 BAESA radar, the data link signatures of her carrier-based aviation control systems, the power levels and sweep patterns that made her electronically distinct from every other vessel in the plan inventory, was in the ESM library, and the system had matched it with 94% confidence. The Fujian was real. She was 310 miles away, and she was heading toward them at 18 knots. The captain set his coffee mug down on the corner of the tactical display console. He studied the picture for 60 seconds without speaking. Everyone in the CIC was quiet. "All right," he said. "Let's be very precise about what we are looking at. A planned carrier strike group on a course that will bring it into close proximity with this formation in approximately 4 hours. They are in international waters. They have every right to be where they are. We are in international waters. We have every right to be where we are." He paused. "What are they not doing?" The watch officer understood the question. "They haven't transmitted on any frequency we're monitoring, sir. No radio contact, no AIS broadcast, no navigational warnings. Silence is a signal. A carrier strike group of 11 vessels moving at 18 knots in a busy international sea lane, generating no radio traffic and no navigational broadcasts, was making a deliberate choice." The silence said, "We are not here for routine navigation. We are here for something that does not benefit from announcement." "Log the silence," the captain said. "Time-bearing contact count. Everything." He looked at the intelligence officer. "What does the RC-135 show?" "RC-135 is currently northeast, sir. We're requesting a repositioning." should be an optimal collection range in approximately 50 minutes. Do it. I want full collection on Fujian specifically. Her aviation control frequencies, her data links, what she's transmitting internally. If she's preparing to launch aircraft, I want to know before the first catapult fires. The electromagnetic catapult on the Fujian was the intelligence community's primary indicator of whether the plan intended to launch combat aircraft during this encounter. A conventional ski jump launch could happen with minimal pre-launch electronic activity. An EMALS launch, the electromagnetic system that the Fujian used, produced a specific detectable power consumption signature in the ship's electrical grid that could be picked up by sensitive collection platforms. The RC-135 would be listening for exactly that signature. At 9:04, the tactical picture added a new element, one of the Fujian's escorting destroyers, a Type 055, the plan's most capable surface combatant, displacing approximately 13,000 tons and equipped with a weapons suite that made it one of the most powerful air defense platforms in the world, had separated from the formation and was moving slightly ahead, taking a screening position between the Fujian and the American formation. At the same time, the American strike group's own defensive arrangement was being reviewed by every ship in the formation. The cruiser tightened its position. The destroyers adjusted their screening arcs. Two carrier strike groups, 290 miles apart, closing at a combined speed of 34 knots, both adjusting their internal geometries in response to the other's presence. The opening moves of an engagement that neither side intended to allow to become kinetic, but that both sides recognized as a test of something that mattered enormously in the long-term competition for maritime supremacy in the Western Pacific. At sea, distance is language, and the language being spoken across 300 miles of Philippine Sea on this Thursday morning was being heard in Pearl Harbor, in the Pentagon, in Beijing's Central Military Commission headquarters, and in every intelligence service in the Indo-Pacific region that had assets in position to track what was developing. The captain made his first significant decision at 9:17. "We will not alter course," he said. "We will not reduce speed. We will not make any movement that could be characterized as yielding to the Fujian's approach. We are in international waters. We have been in this area for 11 days, and we will continue our scheduled operations." He turned to the Air Wing coordinator. "What is our current alert status?" "2 FA-18Fs on Alert 5, sir. Alert 15 is in the ready room. 2 EA-18G Growlers on standby. Bring the Alert 5 to engines running. Do not launch. I want them ready, but I want no launch until I authorize it." He looked at the E-2D's picture again. "What is our next scheduled flight operation?" "COD delivery at 10:30, sir. Execute on schedule. Do not modify flight operations. I want the Fujian's crew watching our flight deck, doing exactly what it was going to do before they appeared on radar." This was the discipline of professional restraint applied at the operational level. The carrier strike group would continue its scheduled activities as though the Fujian's approach were interesting rather than alarming. Not because it was not being taken seriously, but because taking it seriously meant responding proportionately and professionally, rather than visibly and reactively. Any modification to the American carrier's flight schedule in response to the Fujian's approach would be observable. The plan's intelligence services would note it, analyze it, and interpret it as evidence that the approach had created operational disruption. The disruption would be seen as a success. The captain intended to deny them that success before they came within 200 miles. At 9:44, the RC-135V reached its collection position. Within 8 minutes, the signals analysts were reporting a rich electromagnetic environment around the Fujian. Active radar systems across multiple frequency bands, aviation control frequencies indicating her flight deck was manned, and her aircraft crews were at some readiness level. The Fujian was not on a training cruise. She was operational. The RC-135V's collection also confirmed that the planned strike group was in continuous satellite communications with a shore command element, likely the Southern Theater Navy Authority, transmitting and receiving with a frequency consistent with real-time operational direction. The Fujian's approach was being watched and directed from shore. The American strike group had the same picture in near real time. At 10:12, with the formations at approximately 190 miles, the American strike group executed its scheduled COD delivery, a C-2 Greyhound landing, offloading priority cargo, departing 22 minutes later. Routine, unmodified, observed by planned surveillance assets that had been watching the American carrier for 90 minutes. The Fujian launched her first aircraft at 10:31. The launch was detected by the RC-135V's collection of the EMALS power signature before the first aircraft had left the deck, and confirmed by the E-2D's radar 30 seconds after the aircraft was airborne. Two contacts emerging from the Fujian's bearing at high speed, climbing rapidly. Classification J-15T carrier-based fighter, the catapult-capable variant of China's primary carrier fighter. They were climbing to altitude on a course that would bring them to a position approximately 80 miles northwest of the American formation, close enough to conduct electronic surveillance and close enough to be visible on every sensor the American strike group possessed, but far enough to maintain ambiguity about intent. In the CIC, the Air Warfare Coordinator reported the launch in the same even tone he used for everything. Fujian has launched 2 aircraft, classification J-15T, course southeast, climbing through 15,000. The captain had been expecting this. A carrier that does not launch aircraft during a close approach to a potential adversary's carrier is a carrier that is signaling restraint. The Fujian launching J-15Ts was the Fujian signaling that she was operationally capable, that her air wing was functional, and that the catapult worked. It was a demonstration within a demonstration. Launch the Alert 5, the captain said. Standard intercept geometry. 2 aircraft. They are to identify the J-15Ts, maintain visual contact, and operate professionally. Fire control radar remains cold unless I give a specific order. They are not to act aggressively. They are to be present and unambiguous. The 2 F/A-18F Super Hornets were airborne at 10:34. They climbed northwest under the E-2D's guidance, threading toward the intercept position at maximum military power. In the CIC, their track icons moved steadily across the tactical display toward the J-15T contacts. The intercept occurred at 10:51, 83 miles northwest of the American carrier. The two Super Hornets established their position off the J-15T's port beam, 1 mile separation, matching altitude and speed. The planned pilots would have seen the F/A-18Fs clearly. The planned pilots would have known that they had been intercepted with a precision that demonstrated the American formation's complete awareness of their departure from the Fujian before they had climbed through 3,000 feet. The intercept geometry made that clear without a word being spoken. On the tactical frequency, the American intercept lead transmitted a single line. Plan aircraft, you are operating in proximity to United States naval aviation. We are maintaining visual contact. Please operate safely and professionally. The J-15T lead did not respond verbally, but his wingman waggled his wings once, a gesture that pilots across cultures and doctrines understand as acknowledgement. And both plan aircraft maintained their course and altitude without deviation. At 11:18, the two carrier formations had closed to 140 miles. The E-2D's radar now held both the Fujian and the American carrier on the same display picture. Two carrier strike groups separated by 140 miles of Philippine Sea, both maintaining their courses and speeds, both with aircraft airborne between them, both with every sensor recording everything the other side was doing. 140 miles. The world had not seen two carrier strike groups of peer or near-peer powers in this proximity, in open ocean, in anything other than a formal exercise context, since the Cold War. The captain stood at the tactical display and looked at the picture for a long moment. He looked at the Fujian's formation, the Type 055 screening destroyer in its vanguard position, the J-15Ts holding their position 80 miles northwest with two Super Hornets alongside them. He looked at his own formation's arrangement. Cruiser, destroyers, the geometry of American carrier defense that had been refined over 8 decades. He looked at the timeline. At 140 miles and closing at 34 knots combined, the formations would reach their CPA in approximately 2.5 hours. He looked at the communications officer, a Channel 16. Transmit in English and Mandarin. The message was drafted in 3 minutes and transmitted at 11:23. Plan carrier strike group operating northwest of this formation. This is a United States Navy carrier strike group. We are conducting lawful operations in international waters. We note your presence and your current course and speed. We are prepared for a professional interaction between our formations in accordance with the 2014 Code for Unplanned Encounters at Sea and the principles of COLREGs. We recommend establishment of direct communication between our formation commanders to coordinate safe navigation. We are monitoring all frequencies. All activities continue to be recorded and transmitted to United States Indo-Pacific Command. The Kiyu's reference was deliberate. It cited an agreement Beijing had formally signed, framed the encounter within a legal framework China could not publicly reject, and offered the Fujian's commander a pathway toward professional communication on terms the United States had defined. The Fujian's formation did not respond immediately. At 11:47, with the formations at 117 miles and the geometry still compressing, the response came. Not on Channel 16. The plan was not going to create a record of a direct Channel 16 exchange with an American carrier on these terms. The response came through an indirect channel. The Fujian formation altered course by 7 degrees to the right, northeast from southeast. The heading change was subtle, but the mathematics were not. On the new course, the CPA between the two formations increased from an eventual projection of somewhere below 60 miles to a projection of 92 miles. Still close, still a statement, but the compression had stopped. The geometry was no longer tightening. It was stabilizing. In the CIC, the Surface Warfare Coordinator updated the CPA projection and reported it without inflection. The captain looked at the number. He looked at the Fujian's new course vector on the display. He looked at the J-15Ts still holding their surveillance position northwest with 2 Super Hornets alongside them. He said nothing for 30 seconds. Then, log the course change. Time, bearing alteration, new CPA projection. Transmit to Indopacom. He looked at the Air Warfare Coordinator. The J-15Ts. When they decide to go home, the Super Hornets escort them to the edge of their formation's airspace and break off. Professional and complete. The J-15Ts turned northwest at 12:14, recovering toward the Fujian. The Super Hornets followed them for 42 miles before breaking off at 12:31 and returning to the carrier. The intercept was logged, time-stamped, and added to the event reconstruction package that was already being compiled for Indopacom. By 13:30, the two formations were 130 miles apart, and the range was opening. The Fujian had settled on a course that was taking her northwest, not back toward her home port, not retreating, but no longer closing. Parallel tracks, respectful distance, the kind of geometry that two professional navies arrive at when neither has achieved what it most wanted and both have avoided what neither could afford. The captain stood in the CIC at 14:02, watching the Fujian's formation track on the display as the range opened past 140 miles. He thought about what had happened in the past 5.5 hours. The approach, the silence, the J-15T launch, the intercept, the course change. He thought about the intelligence value of the RC-135V's collection of the Super Hornets close quarters imagery of the J-15Ts at 1 mile, of the formation behavior data that would tell analysts in Pearl Harbor and Washington how the plan managed a carrier-to-carrier encounter in open ocean. Full reconstruction, he said. This is the most significant package we have generated on this deployment. Every RC-135 collection product, every E-2D radar track, every Super Hornet flyer frame from the intercept, every ESM capture from first contact to current range. I want it to Indopacom within 3 hours. I want the KUE's compliance analysis specifically flagged what we transmitted, when, and the response we received. He looked around the CIC. The watch team was steady, professional, unbothered. The Fujian launched aircraft today against an American carrier strike group in the Philippine Sea, he said. That is the headline. The other headline is that we were ready for it before she knew she was going to do it. Make sure both headlines are in the report. He left at 14:09. The Philippine Sea continued its long eastern swell. The carrier's flight deck resumed its scheduled afternoon operations cycle. The Fujian was 150 miles northwest and opening. What had changed was the accumulated record, a precise time-stamped account of the day when China's most capable carrier and America's most capable carrier were 140 miles apart in the Philippine Sea, with aircraft between them. And both sides chose professionalism over provocation. Modern carrier aviation is not just the projection of power, it is the projection of a question. Are you certain you want to test this? On this Thursday in this sea, the question had been asked at 1,400 miles per hour and answered at 92 miles CPA. The Philippine Sea held both answers. It always does.